Good morning, everybody. Today is August 23rd, 2021. Our BMN 513 class. Today is the 7th week, so the 7th session. Last week we had the midterm, and I have received many of your responses for the midterm. And now it is closed. So today we are moving on to another area of Buddhist scriptures. As you may know that we have been focusing too much on Pali scriptures, Pali canon and the scriptures in the Pali language. Today we move on to Mahayana Buddhism, Mahayana Scriptures. We have discussed in different classes that Mahayana became the dominant force in India in like 1st century CE, 1st century BCE to 1st century CE. During that time, a new trend, new innovation in Buddhism arose to be known as Mahayana Buddhism. And it differed from the early Buddhism, the earlier part of Buddhist history, and they came along with now new ideas. So even the word Mahayana is a new idea because they criticized the earlier tradition as Hinayana. Hinayana means the lower vehicle. All those schools, many schools belong to that tradition, Hinayana. But this new tradition, new trend, they discussed. Actually, they were saying that their vehicle in the sense that that is the path that you have to lead to attain salvation, attain nirvana. So their path is great. Their vehicle is great, direct. That is why it's called Mahayana. So with the rising of the Mahayana, with the arrival of Mahayana, the Buddhist scriptures changed. Buddhist scriptures changed in the sense that they came up with new scriptures. Elsewhere we were discussing that Mahayana Buddhists were the first among others to write down things, because it was before, it was the oral tradition, oral transmission. We saw in Pali, Tripitaka was transmitted orally. It is the oral tradition. But Mahayana, at the very inception, they started writing things. So that's an added benefit for them. Rather than passing things orally, when you write something, it has more authority, more authenticity. Somehow, Mahayana started that process, writing, and they wrote many sutras, discourses, and they said these were not their own words, but these are the words of the Buddha, Buddha Vachana, the words of the Buddha. But they wrote it later, but originally those words were uttered by the Buddha. Those sutras were uttered by the Buddha. So in that sense, many innumerable number of sutras. It didn't, the Pali Tripitaka, Pali canon was closed around the 1st century BCE. when it was written down in Sri Lanka in the 1st century BCE, the Pali canon was closed. You cannot add any more. It's finished. But the Mahayana, when they started in 1st century BCE or CE onward, up until the end of Buddhism in India, around 9th century. So around 8, 9 centuries, perhaps even 1,000 years, these sutras were developed. Many sutras were added. And there are some very popular sutras. We are not going to focus on many of them, but just to get a general idea, to overview of what Mahayana sutras are, it is, I mean, for your understanding, it is necessary. So the origin of Mahayana, remember that it took place around 1st century BCE and 1st century CE. Within that time frame, they say, scholars agree that Mahayana Buddhism arose in India, not elsewhere in India. And then they came up with a lot of sutras, a lot of scriptures. No author for those scriptures, because they were, all those scriptures were they considered them as the words of the Buddha. Buddha had uttered those words. So later on, these sutras were translated into Chinese, Tibetan, and originally these sutras were written in Sanskrit. That is interesting. So, you know, another language is Sanskrit in India, very famous. Originally, sutras were written in Sanskrit, not in Pali, in Sanskrit. There are some extant sutras in Sanskrit. Some of them are partially existing, and many of those sutras were translated into either Chinese or Tibetan. So you find Mahayana sutras, about 80–90% of Mahayana sutras in Chinese translations and Tibetan translations. Roughly about 20%, maybe even less, in original Sanskrit form. And what were they talking in these sutras? Very interesting, because they came along with new ideas. They were promoting those new ideas in these sutras, like the three-body theory. Three-body theory means that they came with the idea that Buddha has 3 bodies. 3 bodies means 3 appearances. One appearance is Buddha appears as Dharma. His teaching is his Dharma body. His teaching is his Dharma body. That's the body. Buddha appear in that body. And then the flesh, human Buddha, flesh Buddha is Nirmanakaya, creative Buddha. He appears in a creation, like Gautama Buddha, in flesh and blood. He is Nirmanakaya. So Buddha appears in that way too. And the other one is the Sambhogakaya. Sambhogakaya is the Buddha appears to certain devas and certain bodhisattvas in a different form, and that is called Sambhogakaya. So in this way, Buddha had 3 bodies, 3 kayas. So that idea is developed in Mahayana scriptures. And also a very interesting thing is Prajna Paramita literature. Prajna Paramita literature, wisdom. In Buddhism, very interesting thing is Buddhahood is nothing else but development of your wisdom, prajna, to the highest possible level. Here we have to focus on something. Buddha says that you have to develop your wisdom to the highest possible level so that you can understand things better. If you do not have wisdom, if you are not wise, you are in a trouble. You cannot understand things. So you need to develop your wisdom by meditation and insight meditation. You can develop your wisdom. You can see things clearly when your wisdom is developed. If you do not have, you have the wisdom, but it is covered. It is kind of blocked. So you have to bring it to light and then increase the luster of your wisdom, increase the light of your wisdom by practicing meditation and insight. That's one area. And the other thing is in Buddhism, it teaches, even in early Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism also, they taught that wisdom alone is not enough. If you have wisdom, you might say, oh, I have wisdom, I can understand things better, I can reason out things better, I can plan things better, I can act wisely, I'm okay, but that's not enough. What is the other part that we need to develop in our, to be a successful person, to be an enlightened being? You have to develop your heart too. Developing your heart means you need to have certain qualities like compassion, love, affection, gratitude, things like that. Those things are coming from your heart. So in Buddhism, it teaches that there is a clash, there is a fight between head and heart. Head means wisdom, knowledge, understanding, reasoning, intellect, head. Heart means love, affections, feelings, compassion, gratitude, things like that, aesthetics things. When you have a heart, you feel the suffering of others. When you are compassionate, only you can understand what suffering means, how people suffer. So you need to have your heart too. So this is the, in human history, what has happened in us is that we were fluctuating, going up and down between these two things, either head or heart, between head and heart, between instinct and intellect. Instincts, your feelings, intellect, your reasoning. Even in yourself, I think as human beings, we all have this trouble. We have an internal conflict, internal clash between our feelings and our feelings or our emotions and our reason, our wisdom, our knowledge. So this clash is always there in human history. So Buddhism recognizes that this clash has to be overcome. This conflict has to be stopped in order to be a fully enlightened person. In order to be a fully enlightened person, you have to have a balance between these two. What two? Head and heart. I use those two terms because it's easy for anybody to understand. Between your head and heart, there should be a balance. There should be an equilibrium. If not, if they are not balanced, then only one side is up and then the other side is down. You are not enlightened. To be enlightened, then you have to have both these areas developed. Only you develop your wisdom, then you become a dry rationalist. You reason out things with your knowledge, with your brain, you plan things, you take decisions based on your wisdom. But once you have your heart developed, only your heart, not wisdom, you are not wise, but only your heart, your feelings, you go by your feelings, then you are emotionally charged. You are very emotional. You do not reason out things. You do not plan things. You just go by your emotions. So reason has no place there. That's why Buddhism says it has to be blended. There should be a blend between your head and heart. This blend is very important. Your instincts and intellect. In Buddhism, they use we use two important words for these things. One is great compassion. Compassion comes from your heart. So Buddha has the great compassion as well as he has the great wisdom. So wisdom comes from your head, right? So great wisdom and great compassion. These two things are the Buddhahood. If someone asks you what Buddhahood means, it is nothing else. The blend of head and heart, blend of karuna and prajna. Karuna is the Pali word for compassion. Prajna is the word for wisdom. So the blend of these two things will bring you to enlightenment. One side is not enough. That's the idea. So even in day-to-day life, in your day-to-day life also, by learning these things, you have to understand that in our life also, we need to have a balance between our feelings and our intellect, our emotions and our reasoning. There should be a blend. Otherwise, you become very dry, very one-sided, lopsided. Your decisions are not right because you are only one-sided. Okay? That's what you need to understand in your day-to-day life. When you decide certain things, always consider to, am I going to take this decision based on my wisdom? Wisdom alone will not help you. You need the compassion, the other area. In Buddhism, sometimes these two are referred to as Shraddha and Prajna, faith and reasoning. You know, those people who do not have heart, who do not have developed their heart, their feelings, they criticize the other people's faith. They don't have any faith, right? And at the same time, those people who have developed their heart only heart, they behave very foolishly because they do not have reason, they do not have wisdom, judgment, hard to do that thing. So it is better for you to have these two things in your life. That is what Buddhism teaches. So in Mahayana Buddhism, when we talk about the Mahayana scriptures, they focused on this thing heavily. Prajna Paramita literature, there's a whole bunch of sutras based on this line, Prajna, developing your wisdom to the highest possible level. And at the same time, it emphasizes the fact that developing your wisdom alone might not be enough for your salvation. You have to develop your heart, your compassion. So blend of these two things is a must. And so Prajna Paramita literature is very famous in Mahayana literature. And then again, there are many sutras like Lotus Sutra. It's called Saddharma Pundarika Sutra. And then many sutras, very famous sutras. Avatamsaka Sutra, Ratnakota Sutra, Mahaparinirvana Sutra, they add the word Maha most of the time to make it a bigger, to give the meaning of bigger. So these sutras became so popular, like the Heart Sutra, maybe in Chinese, if you most of you are from Mongolia. So in Mongolian tradition also you find the Heart Sutra. I don't know what you call it in Mongolian language. Heart Sutra is very popular. Monks chant it quite often. It has a magical power that to bless upon certain things, they chant the Heart Sutra. And along with this Mahayana scriptures, new people, new names became popular, like Amitabha. Amitabha is the Buddha in the different world, in the Pure Land. The new concepts, Pure Land Buddhism. When you pronounce the name of the Buddha, Amitabha, you know, in China you have heard Namo Amitofo, Namo Amitofo. They just recite that. When you recite it as many times as possible, chances are that you might be able to be born in the Amitabha world, the realm of the Amitabha. It's a pure land, heaven, that kind of idea. So these are new ideas that came along with the Mahayana Sutras, Mahayana ideas. Originally, in early Buddhism, there were no such ideas. Mahayana Buddhism made these ideas popular, and little by little, they gained ground in Mahayana countries. China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, Mongolia, all those countries, these Mahayana ideas came into being, established with the with the arising of the Mahayana. So Mahayana scriptures are really a vast corpus of literature. One cannot study it in maybe one lifetime. A big corpus of literature, and they are called scriptures, Buddhist scriptures. Out of them, Prajna Paramita is the oldest. Ashtasahasrika Prajna Paramita. Like that, there are many Prajna Paramita Sutra with the 24,000 lines, 8,000 lines, like that. 100,000 lines, Shatasahasrika, like that. There are many Ajna Paramita Sutras. So those were the original Mahayana Sutras. And later on, they added many other sutras with different names. With the different names means not the author. These are talking about different Buddhas, different Bodhisattvas, things like that. So likewise, this body of literature became scriptures, and they developed throughout the Indian history up until the end of Buddhism in India. That is about 9th century. I think that is enough for today. So if you have any questions, please email me or ask me, call me. So you will get the homework assignment too. And we will have another, I think this is the 23rd. So next week we have the class. And September 6th, we do not have class because it's a holiday. And our last day is September 13th. That is the final exam. So September 13th will be the final. So we have 2 more weeks to go. Okay, 2 more weeks to go, not much time. So thank you very much for listening. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye-bye.